Ah, the Angels of Hope, as you've been called. Why might you be here? Where is here, exactly? Ah, that's quite a question. As far as you can be concerned, this is the core of Spytopia. Far as we're concerned? Also, there's a bright light coming from over there. Is that the light from the surface? Seems unlikely if we were at the core. That light is not of the pink sun, you know. Rather, its predecessor. What remains of it.
Wait, are you trying to tell us that light is being emanated from a sun inside a planet?
If it were any normal sun, this would indeed be a frightening revelation. But you've no doubt surmised the pink sun is no ordinary star. Unlike the many volatile stars you know, the pink sun gets its color from the spellweaver's latent arcane power. In any iteration of the universe, one pink sun and only one will exist. There are only two in this dimension because, well, perhaps I shouldn't say. Too late, you've gotten me reading the first paragraph, so deliver the story. I should mention you are my exact concern going forward. Why is it always me? I'll tell you the story if it gets me out of answering that self-victimizing question. I don't believe in pity. Deal. The truth is, Spytopia in this iteration is rather unique. In most iterations, all of its life lived on both the land and the clouds, and the land was vast, mystical, and full of wonder. That was the Spytopia I knew, that all knew until the event. I am the author of this tale more than anyone. Courtesy of my friend Yi, Blue was let to know long before I'd done anything wrong, of what I would do. Yi's got a very playful nature, shall we say, though her games aren't to everyone's liking. I did not realize Blue even knew my name. Despite how much I looked up to her, she seemed like more legend than legitimate, until that fateful day when she approached me and asked me aside for tea. I was rather young then, still attending infant school, in fact. I was so nervous, I more or less ended up making a fool of myself, or so I thought. Though knowing Blue as I came to later, it seems I was the one having an easy time. This was shortly after I'd asked a question that escapes this generation. A nymph's life is immortal, and while I may not look like much of a cloud nymph now, that is what I was. The only inevitability we have to worry, or had to worry about, was the end of a cycle. As you know, those have been discontinued ever since that ballsy clash a mere 21 years ago. But prior to that point in time, even aspects and gods had an expiration date. The one thing we feared. During the lecture I was pulled away from, we were taught about re-origination. I asked a question which I can tell made my teacher stumble. So, does everyone die? Is there no rest from expiration? I gathered this line was what made Blue wary of me, as he had already confirmed to her that I would be, shall we say, a bit of a wrecking ball. After receiving an answer of futility, I began to sift through some new emotions, distrust, doubt, and unease. I began to wonder why we had been given this lesson at all. Was it just to tell us our place is on our knees? Can we not be ignorant and live with this cruelty on the day it no longer matters? Before I could get too lost on the matter, Blue herself approached me. She looks very different now to what she did then. I was shocked and yet brought to unease at being invited to have tea with her. Had my emotions been noted? Was I now dwelling in my own doubt, too dangerous to be allowed presence on this world I called home? I respected Blue, both her beauty and intelligence, but I also knew to fear her power. There are very few even to this day that don't. Thankfully, it seemed Blue was merely interested to see where my studies had taken me. This was, however, clearly a misread on my part. When I revealed my stash of tomes, the goddess whose very aspect was magic looked to be an absolute horror. Could the aspect of magic be fearful of her very element? I stood motionless in terror, thinking that I had offended my very aspiration for studying so hard to begin with. Of course, I didn't have done so. I was a young child with lots of questions and many great ambitions. Mine was a power even I feared. The few times I used it, I brought untold suffering and unrest to the peoples of the universe. Back then, I tried to play it cool and just be hardened and resolute about it, but it felt wrong. I am sorry I displayed such a reaction. He was particularly playful in that session, and I was in quite a state because of it. As I'm sure you now know, you were not the reason I was offended. I am glad you are here. I have not heard much of this from your side. Anyway, I was now shaking and wanting to leave the conversation before I did more to offend Blue. So I quickly took an impromptu manner to get up and leave, which I'll admit, now, wasn't a very smart move, but I wasn't thinking straight. Divine beings terrify next to everyone, and the ones who claim they are benevolent strike even greater fear in me. Funny, it was that one exchange that gave me the motive to pursue that one ambition, an ambition shared by many in the cosmos. To escape cyclic destruction, to survive re-origination. Over the course of many years, me and some of my like-minded kin began fashioning a means of doing just that. This process was simple enough. The gatekeeper would tear apart all but two things: antimatter and the word of Xenania. So I opted to create a black hole in the core of our planet and jump in mere moments before the gatekeeper would be unleashed. We would spend 5 years in the darkest place in existence, to emerge courtesy of our own magical power and the laws of space-time dampening as the fabric of reality was shredded around us. We emerged to see a place not much lighter, but to us, after being in a black hole, it was beautiful. We had successfully brought the source of our power with us. The pink sun had survived, but something was off. You've no doubt met Fayari. She looked similar to our Clavin of Stew. We no longer looked like we did. It wasn't long before Yi arrived to greet us, and explained that we had succeeded. We had not only passed the barrier of eternity, but impressed terror. However, even if our surreal cosmic progeny should endure, the shadow pixies as they are now will not survive forever. Because your son is dying. The one in this core. Couldn't you go bask in Spartopia's newly awakened one? We can bask under any sun we like, but only our original sun can provide our magical power, not to mention our eternal life. Not one of my kind have I ever seen die, but I fear that as our sun slowly wanes, so will the likelihood of me avoiding that unpleasant spectacle. My people are not fans of death. What can you expect from those who have fought it to the point they'd sooner spend 5 years in a lightless abyss than be subjected to its fangs? Death is far from the end. Fayari is dead and among the ascended. You will endure, just not as easy for you to say. You've grown up in a world full of death. You are heavily desensitized to it. The fear of death has been behind most great decisions I've made, and there are some who can take both life and death away. Those as mere concepts shape me to my core. You may not be afraid of death, but you are afraid of absolute termination, are you not? I see death as no less terrifying. Knowing isn't enough, and I speak for most of my kind on that matter. It doesn't help that we have insipid evildoers in the guise of children, swinging scythes around who have such potent powers. I thought I would enjoy this extension, knowing I didn't have to go back inside a black hole. Yet, all I can feel is trepidation. Yi warned me cracks would start to form, as cosmic apoptosis was given permit to root itself. The real concern is just how quickly things have begun to unravel. Because the cosmos has gone on since the time it had, which is just started to appear in the, Simulation? Correct. Zali, the southwarding maniac I referred to earlier, has been waiting in the shadows for this to happen. What worries me is just how much progress she has made in so short a time. 21 years is but a fragment, a mere speck in a lifetime like mine. I do not dare to imagine an endless future with her as the ruler. Seems like I discovered my price. Breaking the rules of the cosmos has ghastly costs. What do you think is worse, an attorney under Zali, or oblivion? I do not wish to answer, as that question demands a lot of pretense I do not have the stomach to dare approach. If I asked you if you'd prefer a quick painless death, or the life of suffering, would you be able to answer? Yeah, I guess I was just curious if you had more rigid or defined ideals about that. I do not blame you, but I can tell you that you are not unusual in this regard. Even aspects would not be able to answer such a question. My general rule is if intelligence can't answer it, I won't try to. It's not like I could even pretend to know better than the aspect of knowledge herself. You could easily do so, though. You're older than this version of me, and I no longer possess the amount of knowledge I once did. Hell, I only discovered I have boobs a few years ago. May I ask, what exactly you did to yourself? That whole epiphany you had sounds remarkably self-destructive. Nope.
Well, okay.